Hello, name's Cedar, and once again I am trying to record an audiobook of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books from the Nexie book, right? I'm recording the second story right now, which is Drowning. I wonder what's gonna happen in this one. Yeah, it's you know, well, maybe a Felix the Shark or something. Who knows? Anyway, once again, I asked for you to bear with me. This is still something I'm not comfortable with. I'm not very good at reading, that is what I mean. It's pretty fun to do, actually, to do the voices and to try to get through the story in one piece. I'll try to do that again today. Maybe not in 3 hours like the last one. Maybe I'll get it in 2 hours this time. That would be wow. Really cool. The first story was only like 45 pages or something in the e-reader that I use. I mean, there are a lot of pages left, so this one might even be longer. I hope I don't need more time than the first one. Anyway, without further ado, let me... Are you sure this resort attraction is worth the wait? Kara Walsh asked Lola and Francine. Kara stretched her sour apple bubblegum out of her mouth as far as it could go and then popped it back in. She was so bored from standing in line. Francine looked at Lola as she always did. Totally, Lola said, pushing her dark hair behind her ear. My brother swears by it. He says it's one of the best VR experiences he's ever had. She pulled out a folded up piece of paper from her full leather fanny pack. Besides, it's up next on our itinerary. Bear with me, please. Itinerary. Good enough. And it's gotten a full 5 stars from reviewers. I can't get better than that. Yeah, can't get better than 5 stars, Francine chimed in. Kara sighed, crossed her arms, and cocked her hip. Lola was a master planner. There was always a list. A summer plan list, a school supply list, an extracurricular activities for the school year list. Things they were going to do at the Mega Pizzaplex list, and a whole boatload of others. Blah, blah, blah. Kara preferred to be spontaneous. She liked to do things on a whim, to have fun in the moment instead of always planning things out. She liked the action and excitement, ultimately the feeling of being carefree, which usually didn't include waiting in the longest, slowest, longest, most boring line in history of long lines. Yeah, they'd been waiting over 30 minutes. That's not a long time, because the Mega Pizzaplex was so packed with kids of all ages, helicopter parents, and long-suffering employees. It had been Lola's idea to have them each ask their parents for full day passes as a reward for receiving good grades on their latest semester report cards, which gave them infinite gameplay and, of course, unlimited rides on the special attractions. It turned out, though, that the special attraction only lasted a measly 5 minutes. It was such a scam, in Kara's opinion, since they were lucky if they got to experience each attraction even twice by the time things were moving along. Kara shifted again and craned her neck to watch a few kids walk out of the resort exit as they laughed, giving each other high fives. That was cool! I know, it's like we were really there. That was the best! A plus. A plus for me. Good for them, Kara thought grudgingly. When was it going to be her turn? The line finally moved forward and she bounced in her high-top tennis shoes in anticipation. But the attendant cut the line right in front of Francine. Kara's shoulders sagged. This is taking forever. She blew a bubble and it popped. We're up next, Lola told her. It's gonna be really intense, you'll see. Lola was not just their planner, but their resident optometrist. Yeah, that's it. She had long brown hair with pretty waves and light brown skin. She often dressed in red, just like the frilly top that she was currently wearing with her jeans. She donned big hoop earrings that poked out from her long hair. She was also the one who had formed their friendship on the first day of middle school. They'd each been new to the school district and had been sitting alone before class started. And then suddenly there was Lola, flashing her silver braces, introducing herself with a firm handshake, with Francine already by her side, asking Kara if she wanted to be their friend. They'd been inseparable ever since, even now as sophomores, which was why Kara was willing to wait in line. Lola's ideas always turned out well. Yeah, it will be so intense, said Francine. She was the more timid one of the three, even though she rocked plus-size fashion, was the tallest by 2 inches. Most of the time, Francine just agreed with whatever Lola said and made a point to always be nice to everyone. She had honey blonde hair that reached her shoulders, with hazel eyes that sometimes looked gray and sometimes blue. She had a habit of pulling at her clothes as if she wasn't comfortable in them, even when Kara and Lola always assured her that she looked just fine. Kara, on the other hand, often forgot to be nice. In fact, most of the time she didn't have time to remember. She liked to be on the go, to get the boring things done quickly so she could do the fun things like ride bikes, skateboards, rock climbing, or experience new things. Maybe it was her hair, wild strawberry blonde, curls her mother always said couldn't be tamed. But she might just die. But she might just die in line of boredom. Yeah, sure. Before they ever moved forward and got to try out the resort. I'm thirsty, Francine said. Is anyone thirsty? Lola said no, and Kara shook her head. I'm not really either, Francine said, looking around, twirling a strand of her hair around her finger. Next in line, the line attendant called out and opened the braided rope to allow them into the resort. Finally, Kara gushed as they walked into the VR experience, only to find out when they had entered deeper into the attraction that there were 2 more groups ahead of them. Ugh. Kara tossed her curls in frustration. Why me? Kara, relax, it's almost our turn, Lola told her. Just look around. See how cool it is? Kara lifted her eyebrows. Francine's white shirt lit up like a ghost in the black light. The attendants wore pink and green shirts that glowed like virtual cotton candy. Neon palm trees, waves, and beach balls were the only lights along the walls. Glow-in-the-dark posters showcased the different VR experiences. Water park, the beach, or Coaster City. Coaster City. Wake up, buttercup. We got a coaster to city. No, never mind. In the picture, the players were sliding down elaborate water slides. Others were surfing and some were riding amusement park attractions. Just ahead was the door to the actual VR experience. So is this like after under construction, or I guess it must, or no. Under construction is probably going to cause everything VR related to shut down. Right? Unless this is something else, who knows? A large monitor hung from the ceiling, flashing with scenes of what the current players were experiencing. At the moment, a group of 3 were playing volleyball on the beach. Kara chewed her gum absently as she eyed the posters of the water park, studying the spiraled water slides, some of the ladders that looked extremely tall, and she felt a tingle in her gut. It was almost fear, almost excitement. It told her she wanted to play the water park. In a book that's called The Drowning, I don't think that's a good idea, but I suppose that's not information she is privy to. Well, anyway, she wanted to play the water park experience really, really bad. Oh, I know what would be fun for us, Lola said, as she pointed to the poster that said, Coaster City, an action-packed thrill ride. Let's choose Coaster City. Okay, Francine agreed happily. Kara made a face and pointed instead at the water park posters. I want to pick the water park. Look at those slides. They're awesome. It would be so much fun, Lola. Lola tilted her head and somehow gave Kara a look her mother often gave her. Come on, Kara. Let's play Coaster City together. We don't want to choose separate experiences. We're doing this as best friends, remember? Yeah, come on, Kara, Francine said. Kara recrossed her arms, biting back in protest. It had seemed like an especially long school year, and yeah, it was great spending time with her best friends, but a little alone time doing what she wanted to do sounded pretty good to her. They followed Lola's list all year long. Sometimes it got old. But best friends do everything together, right? So Kara did what she usually did when it came to Lola. She gave in order to do something fun. Kara heaved a long sigh and nodded in agreement. Fine. Lola clapped her hands. It's going to be so cool, you'll see. Better be, Kara muttered. Huh? Lola said. Francine looked at Kara and then at Lola. Kara passed on a fake smile. Nothing. Can't wait. Lola smiled. Okay, great. Then Lola turned away. Kara rolled her eyes. She was pretty sure her sarcasm was lost on Lola, even when Francine seemed to see past Kara's facade. But being the nice one of the trio, Francine never mentioned anything. A few minutes later, they finally moved up to be next in line. Kara glimpsed inside the VR room at the door, and as the door slid open, there were normal lights highlighting the boxed red room. 4 large chairs were lined up together with some kind of weird helmets connected by a thick wire. She watched as the group of four before them strolled in and talked to the line attendant. Then the group stood in front of the chairs as a blue laser light scanned down their bodies. What's that about? Kara asked. Oh, it's really cool, Lola told her. Your body is scanned, so you upload it into the virtual reality. When you look at one another in the in the VR world, we'll see perfect digital versions of ourselves. Awesome, right? Carol nodded her head, impressed. The attendant started to walk back to the girls as the doors slid closed behind them. Even under the black light, it was obvious the attendant was a tall, cute boy with a nice smile. Lola nudged the girls with the elbow and smiled, giving a thumbs up, telling them the boy was super cute. Another resort attendant, who must have been controlling the VR experience, stood off to the side behind the big console. Hey ladies, you up for a virtual fun time? The cute line attendant asked. What's your choice at the resort? Coaster City, Lola said, excited. He nodded his head. Perfect. It's our most popular experience. He shifted his attention to Kara. How about you? Is that what you want to choose? Kara's eyebrow lifted as she chewed gum. Me? He smiled. Yeah, you. It's like a radio announcer. Yeah, you. I'm speaking to you. Oh. Lola and Francine giggled. Yeah, I mean, that's what they want, so sure. I'm Zachary, and I didn't ask. Thank you, though. My friends call me Zach. Still didn't ask. Kara, this is Lola and Francine. Oh, I guess they're doing names now. Are they gonna stay here longer? I thought it's just a 5-minute thing. Anyway. Cool. Please throw out any gum or candy you may be eating. Sorry, it's the rules. Then he called out to the other attendant. Coaster City up next, Ralph. Kara shrugged, stepped to a nearby garbage can and spit out her gum. A couple minutes later, the door to the VR experience finally slid open, revealing the 4 chairs as the other group strolled out of the exit across from the entrance. The girls trotted in. Even though it was the experience Kara wanted to do, she remained. Even though it was the experience Kara didn't want to do, she remained eager to try out the VR attraction. Stand on the big X, please, Zack told them. Then hold still and look straight ahead. Seeing him under the real lights, Kara realized Zack had dark hair, tan skin, blue eyes, and dark freckles. He was definitely cute. Sure, she said, and glanced down to stand on a black X marked on the red carpet. She stayed in place and looked up as the blue light motioned down her body. An odd feeling rolled over her with the light, and she slowly blinked. The room seemed to move slightly under her feet. Must be getting hungry, she thought, as the other girls each chose a chair and buckled themselves in. Okay, ladies, Zack said to them, making sure they were each secured in their seat. The VR chair and helmet worked together. The VR chair and helmet work together to help you integrate yourself fully into the experience. They control heat, sensors, movement, and visualization. You can even drown. Sorry. That's a slip of tongue. Sorry. You can speak to the microphone in the helmet to communicate to others and give a few simple commands. Where you turn your visual direction is where you'll be able to move forward. Move toward the experience and join in a game or go for a ride. Kara was still looking around the boxed room, taking in every detail. Signs were posted on the walls. One stated, "Please stay in your seats until the experience is completely finished." Another stated, "In case of sickness, press the emergency button on your right armrest." Shouldn't Zack be saying that? Oh well, safety isn't exactly a Fazbear. How do you say? It's not common in places like that. Kara turned her gaze to the right armrest to see a big yellow button, then glanced up at the neon sign lit up across the wall with one word: Hyper time. Okay. Zack checked on Kara last. All set. Hey Zack, Kara asked, What's that hyper time thing about? Oh yeah, hyper time is pretty popular. It puts your brain into overdrive and makes you feel like you're experiencing the game longer than usual. Of course, you have to pay more. He leaned down and whispered, It's really just a shot of an adrenaline though. Through the senses of the player. But, hyper time makes it sound more exciting. Kara smiled. Got it. He winked. Okay, slip on your helmets and get ready for Coaster City. It's gonna be so cool, Lola said with a glee. So cool, Francine added. The girls grabbed their helmets with flat goggles from the hook on the side of the chair, slipped them on. Kara heard the door slide shut to the VR room, and the Coaster City screen flashed in front of her eyes. Kara walked onto a beach boardwalk with tons of rides and games surrounding her. With each step, she could hear the scrape of sand beneath her feet. A seagull cried from the sky and music played from speakers attached to wooden poles. Wow, Lola said, looking down at herself. She smiled and then studied Kara and Francine. Look, it's really us. This is amazing. Francine giggled. Oh, I wish I had worn a more interesting outfit. Francine, you look good, Lola told her. Kara smiled. Yeah, you're just fine the way you are. She waved her hand in front of her face. It looks exactly like her hand, down to the little freckle on her thumb. This is cool. Look how big it is here, Lola said, gazing about. There are more rides than I've ever seen in my life. It was true. The rides were packed together like a huge carnival city with bright colors and giant signs. There were a bunch of people around them, eating sweets and drinking soda. Much to Kara's dismay, there were long lines to the rides. Were you gonna have to wait in a line in the VR experience? Okay. Well, it's super crowded, Kara complained. And suddenly the crowd thinned down to a few other people. Whoa, that was easy. Wow, this is neat, Lola said. Yeah, totally, Francine agreed. Let's ride the speedster. Kara rushed over to the coaster that looked blistering fast, her friends trailing behind her. The girls tried to ride as many rides as they could. The hair blew away from their faces and the sun shined down on their skin. Oh, sorry. The sun shined down on their skin, warming them. Then they rode a roller coaster. Their bodies jerked with each rush and shift. They screamed, and then they dove down steep hills, or when they shifted into a fast turn. The giant swings that turned in circles made them dizzy. But as soon as they were finished their ride, Coaster City faded from their VR screen. That's it? Kara moaned. What a rip. I was so sure. She should have tried out hyper time. Wow, Lola exclaimed. But it was so awesome. I can't believe how cool it was. I felt like I was really there, riding the rides, even felt the ocean air. I could even smell the popcorn and hot dogs. My brother was right. It was the best. They shifted off their helmets, set them on the hook, and then buckled before climbing out of the VR seats. I know, it was really fun, Francine agreed. The best. Yeah, it was cool, Kara said, even though it had lasted only a few minutes. I liked the roller coaster the best. It was the only ride that gave me a real rush. Lola threw her look with a twist of the lips. We know, Kara, you're a fearless daredevil. Kara grinned at that because she liked to be known for doing things that were scary. Okay, way to get killed, I guess. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If lines weren't so long, I would have gone again and played water park. Now some of those slides look really intense. The door on the other side of the room slid open and they strolled through the exit. Kara glanced up to view another VR monitor that hung on the wall and spotted a pool with a small water slide. She frowned as something at the bottom of the pool caught her eye. A movement. A shift of darkness with long hair. Felix? No. She blinked. Was someone at the bottom of the pool? Hey, do you guys see that? What? Lola asked, looking around. But when Kara pointed to the screen, it was back to a roller coaster ride. Nothing, I guess, Kara said, uncertain as they walked out. Well, it's only another 30 minutes wait or longer, Lola pointed out as she looked at the long snaking line to get back into the resort. I wouldn't want to wait in a line again. Kara shook her head. No, thanks. Too bad this wasn't virtual reality and people could literally disappear. No, not in this book. No more long lines for me, please. I know what you mean. Then let's see what's next on the itinerary. Oh my god. I can't do this. Lola said as she eagerly took out the folded paper from her fanny pack. Kara sighed, crossing her arms. Can't wait. For the next 2 hours, the girls played laser tag, indulged in ice cream floats, took pictures in photo booths, giggled through a couple sessions of karaoke. Well, we've done everything we could on the list, Lola told him. It's almost time for my brother to pick us up. We can go hang out in the arcade until he gets here. Okay, Francine agreed. Or we could just explore and see if we missed anything, Kara suggested. Lola tilted her head. Well, I don't want us to get stuck in line and have my brother be waiting for us. He'll get annoyed if I keep him waiting. It'll be better if we hang out at the arcade and just walk out to meet him when he texts. I guess. Kara scanned around and happened to see Zach, the other attendant, closing the line to the resort from the braided rope. Her eyes widened. Oh, I gotta go to the restroom real quick. I'll meet you guys over there. You want us to go with you? Lola asked. Kara flicked out her hand. No, it's okay. See you there in a bit. If there isn't another long line there, too. She rolled her eyes and Lola smiled. Okay, she said. And then Lola and Francine took off towards the arcade. Kara rushed past a few kids eating cotton candy and a woman holding a crying baby before Zach could disappear on her. Hey, Zach! Kara waved at him. Zach jerked his head around and spotted her. Oh, he smiled. Oh, hey, Kara, right? Still here, huh? I'm out, the guy said. Zach nodded at him. See you after dinner, Ralph. Kara expelled a breath. It's almost time for us to go home. You closing up the resort? Yep, just for a bit. We're short-staffed today, so we have to close down attractions for some of our meal breaks. Kara tossed her hair nervously. Zach, before you go, could you show me how the resort works? Especially hypertime? She smiled at him, lacing her fingers together. This was one time she was doing her best to be nice. I probably won't make it back for a while, and I really want us to see how it works. Wait, what? I probably won't make it back for a while, and I really want to see how it works. It was super cool. Zach scratched his head. I guess I could take a few minutes. Kara bounced on her feet. Yes, thank you. Zach released the rope and looked around. Okay, come on inside. Kara ducked inside with excitement. She followed Zach to the control panel. He spread his arms out in front of the panel. So this is where the virtual magic happens. Fascinated, Kara scanned the intricate controls and buttons that looked like some kind of scientific panel often seen in movies. Wow, there are so many buttons and screens. You actually know what everything does? Oh yeah, we had to go through a 2-week training for all the attractions when I was hired. And then pass a big test. I usually bomb at tests, but somehow I got the call. Anyway, we try to monitor what the players are experiencing to make sure everything goes smoothly. Could have used that in under construction, huh? Well, they were unsupervised, I guess that makes sense. This control here is the hyper time. It can be set from 1 to 10 depending on how much extended time you want to experience. It's a little confusing. What do you mean? Well, right now it's 0, right? But I have to punch in a number to see the virtual extended time frame, so it knows how long to increase the experience. Otherwise, what is this just gonna be an under construction? Huh? I guess it is. Otherwise, it would just keep going and going and going. Yes, okay. Definitely under construction. So one is the max time at 1 hour, and then in reality it's still a 5-minute turn. So 1 is the max time at 1 hour, then in reality it's still a 5-minute turn. The player just experiences it like it's longer. Pretty trippy, huh? Yeah, the fucking sentence is trippy. So if you set it to 10, it will only feel like an extra 6 minutes. And if you set it to 1, It'll feel like you're experiencing a whole extra hour. Zack nodded. You got it. You got it. Kara's eyes widened at the possibilities of being in an extra attraction for a longer time frame. Wow, that sounds really cool. She looked at Zack and smiled. Can I ask you one more favor? Zack lifted his eyebrow. You want to try it, don't you? Heck yeah, please, Zack. The line was so long I could only ride once, and the experience was over way too quickly. I do have the unlimited attraction pass, if that helps. Yeah. Zack stared at the controls. Zack stared at the controls for a moment as if debating, and then nodded reluctantly. All right, I guess it wouldn't hurt. It could. Anyway, to do a quick run, Kara bounced on her feet. Yes, you're the best. Zack seemed to like that he made her happy. He ducked his head and grinned. But I have to go clock out for my break first, so I can monitor you. It'll just take me a minute. Kara thought about Lola and Francine. Oh, but my friends are waiting for me. Can I just start the experience first? He shook his head. I can't. I'm not supposed to leave players unmonitored. It's against the rules. Who cares about the dumb rules? Kara thought. Come on, please. You said yourself the experience only takes like 5 minutes. It'll be done by the time you return. Come on, it'll be so cool. Zack ran a hand over the back of his neck, clearly reluctant. Pretty please. He blew out a big sigh. Okay. But don't let anyone know, all right? I'd like to keep my job. Karen made a big motion of zipping her mouth. My lips are sealed. Zack pressed a button and the door slid open to the VR chairs. Come on, strap in. Yes. Kara practically skipped into the room. Do I have to rescan? Nope. The scans stay in the digital memory. That's not safe, is it? Or not? What about players' privacy? Nope, the scans stay in the digital memory all day until they're cleared overnight. Oh, I see. Cool. Can you set me up? Can you set me up with water park with hypertime? Kara said, hopping into the VR chair, buckling in and placing the helmet over her head. Yep, I'm going to turn on water park with hypertime just for you. And can you set it to 1, please? An extra virtual hour it is. I'll see you in a few minutes. You mean I'll be seeing you in 1 virtual hour? Zack chuckled. Right. Have fun. Thanks. I sure will. I'm doubting that. But Kara said it with a big smile. So hopefully everything goes well and nothing like drowning happens. Anyway. Zack sighed again as he walked over to the VR controls. His mom always said he turned to mush. When it came to a cute girl, and found it hard to say no, even when his gut told him otherwise. He just hoped he didn't end up regretting it. He went through the player scans and reselected Kara, clicked on the water park, and flinched when the mini walkie clipped to his collar barked out with his boss's voice. Zack, have you clocked out for dinner? I need you to get a golf ASAP to cover a quick break. Rattled from breaking the rules, Zack rushed to click on hypertime for Sarah and took off out the door. She'll be done in a few minutes, he thought. He spoke into his collar microphone. Sure, boss, I'm on the way. He put the rope back up and flipped the sign to temporary closed. Soon permanently. Anyway, as he rushed over to gate a golf, the hypertime remained set to 0. Doesn't that mean she just gonna be in there 5 minutes? Or was 0 the infinite? Right. She's probably gonna come back in 5 minutes. And then be like, oh, it was only 5 minutes. He must have messed up. Well, he's not here. I guess I'll go again. Sets it to maximum. And problems ensue, I'm sure. Anyway, let's see where this goes. Kara appeared immediately inside a giant water park enclosed with pale blue tiled walls and a high arched ceiling. The echoing of rushing water filled her ears and seemed to echo off the numerous walls. The strong scent of chlorine hit her nostrils. In awe, she turned around to see pools surrounding her in all directions. I feel like if you have VR and like sense or smell emulation somehow, that you wouldn't want chlorine in there. Sure, it's immersive, but it's not exactly a nice smell. I guess you'd still take that over other smells that may be present in a place like that, but still, I can think of better smells. Or I guess I can't, but you know. Anyway. In awe, she turned around to see pools surrounding her in all directions. Some of the pools' areas had doors in the tiled walls that must have led to other areas. Certain water sections appeared shallow, and some looked extra deep. There were short water slides and longer ones. There were slides that zigzagged and ones that curved into spirals. There were pool areas that appeared to have themes like a beach, a donut shop, pirates, and outer space. You know, water park in outer space. Yeah. Okay. There was even a slide coming out of a cool waterfall. That is cool. It was as if the water park went on forever, a never-ending giant labyrinth of water fun that continuously generated no matter where she turned. That's a great place to be stuck in for eternity. A good choice, I guess. This is amazing, she whispered, turning in a circle. They should have called this place Water Park World. I could get lost in here forever. She almost wished Lola and Francine were here with her to see the place. Almost. She'd just have to tell them all about it when she was done and met them back at the arcade. She clapped her hands together in anticipation. They were going to be so jealous that they didn't pick Water Park for the first time. Well, she thought that would be Lola's fault. They missed out since her best friend always had to be in control. For now, Kara would enjoy having a fun time all by herself without having to worry about them. She looked down to see that she wore a blue wet suit with short sleeves and short pants, which was perfect for Kara. She wore a water shorts with colorful tees kind of curl. Just ahead of her, she spotted a flat water slide that led into a shallow pool and ran towards it. She dove down and slid on her belly, arms out, and skidded straight into the little pool. Warm water splashed against her. She laughed as she rose out of the shallow water. So cool! The water felt nice on her skin. She could smell a hint of chlorine, but it wasn't overwhelming. Having the water park all to myself is the best. With a grin, she stood and spotted a tall water slide just ahead. About the height of a 2-story building was a skinny ladder that led to the top. She felt the nervous tingle in her hands and feet, like tiny needles biting into her skin. Kara placed a trembling hand to her tingling stomach. Now that's what I'm talking about. Kara determinedly jogged along the tiled floor towards the water slide. Truth was, she had a thing about fear. She wasn't fearless like Lola had said. She definitely felt fear, but dealt with the fear by trying to face it head on. Only then something made her want to run in the opposite direction. It drove her parents wild. When Kara had been 5, she'd been climbing a tree with her second cousin Peggy, who had inched out on a tree branch that was too small The tree limbs had cracked. When she fell out of the tree, she landed on her head, ended up in a coma, and suffered a traumatic brain injury. Karen never forgave herself for not being able to help her. And as she grew older, she would have nightmares that something like that would happen to her. Her parents were always scolding her for taking too many risks. Karen would get so angry with her mother for trying to instill fear into her that Kara just kept trying to face more and more of the things that scared her, whether it was to rebel against her parents or to try to overcome anxieties and haunted her dreams. Each time she felt that tingle in her feet, in her hands, in her stomach, she knew it was fear she had to break through. Kara looked up to view the top of the slide. She shook her tingling hands, then began to climb the tall metal ladder. With each step up, the tingling increased. Her hands grew damp with nerves. Her legs felt a little wobbly. When she finally reached the top, she felt herself tremble as she gazed out over the infinite selection of pools. She carefully lifted her arms up, taking in the huge park. Her heart was beating fast in her chest, but attempting to beat back a fear was a rush in itself. She felt like she was on top of the world. She stayed like that a little longer just to prove to herself that she could. Carefully she hunkered down, her breath filtering out her mouth with excitement, then pushed off to slide down the wet tube so fast it nearly stole her breath. Adrenaline spiked through her before she splashed into a deep, dark pool, sinking to the bottom. The water surrounding her was the perfect temperature. She swam up out of the darkness and reached the surface, treading water, and suddenly jerked up. Hey! It felt like something brushed her. Oh, hey! It felt like something brushed her leg. I thought someone called out to her. Unease sunk over her as she scanned the dark water around her. Why is it dark water? Is the place not lit up? Floating in the middle of the pool, she quickly swam to the edge and pulled herself out. She pushed her wet hair back as she gazed into the water. There's nothing here, silly, she told herself. She stood and began to walk through the labyrinth. The floors and walls continued with the plain light blue tile until she entered into different themes. The next connecting theme was the jungle. She stepped onto a smooth pebbled rock. Whoa! The air was humid and she felt herself begin to perspire. Palm trees surrounded a huge pool. Giant tropical flowers stuck out in various directions. There were birds chirping and even a distant sound of monkeys. She spotted a parrot singing in a tree with pretty colorful feathers. Oh, hello, she said. The bird clapped its wings at her. Hello, hello. The bird squawked. Kara giggled. You're kinda cool. She reached out a hesitating finger and patted the parrot's soft feathers. Don't leave me alone, the bird told her. Kara tilted her head as she smiled. Well, sorry, but I have to keep exploring. She walked to the pool and dipped her hand in the water. The water was warm and rippled on the surface. Across the body of water was a giant waterfall with a slide attached to the cliff. It was beautiful. Kara sat down and stuck her feet in the pool as she watched the water cascade off the rocks. She glanced down as she kicked her feet. Something moved under the surface. A spurt of alarm shot through her as Kara snatched her feet out of the pool. Was that a sea animal underwater? She wondered. Don't worry, it's just Felix. Then she glimpsed a flow of black hair. Kara gasped. Wait, it was a girl. Could this be like a fantasy theme with the girl in the water with some kind of mermaid? Now that was cool. Would be cool. I'm doubting it. Karen kneeled down and tried to scan beneath the water. Maybe she could spot a tail, but she didn't see the girl again. She sat back, uncertain. Is there a glitch in the VR program?
Nah, don't worry about it. FNAF never had any glitches. None of that.
Or was it just imagination, frowning? She stood and watched and walked out of the jungle and back onto the tiled floor. She noticed the lights dim around her and the walls darken. Her eyes widened in astonishment as she stepped into an outer space theme. Oh my gosh, this is the coolest! The darkened walls had millions of tiny stars, with various planets and even 4 moons. The temperature around her lowered. A comet shot across the wall, and Kara ran along with it as if she could try to catch it. There were various size pools that were highlighted with different colors of purple, blue, pink, and more. Amazed, she walked around taking in the details. She wondered if this was the astronauts' experience. She wondered if this was what the astronauts experienced when they blasted into space. She passed a pale pink pool. Once again, she thought she could see someone within the water. She stepped close and spotted pale hands, dark hair, and a flash of gray. There's the girl again. She wasn't imagining things, and the girl certainly wasn't a mermaid. What the heck was a girl doing inside a VR program with her? Kara was the only one playing the game. Curious, she kneeled down and, studying the pool, she spotted the girl floating at the bottom. Hey, what are you doing here? The girl's black hair drifted around her. She wore some kind of grayish fabric that covered her arms, legs, instead of a bathing suit. Her eyes were closed. Her body seemed unmoving as her arms drifted in the water. She looked dead. Oh no, Carol whispered. She glanced around as if to figure out what to do. There was no one to ask for help. Her hands tingled and she shook them out in front of her. I have to get help. Frightened, Kiara pinched her nose and dove headfirst into the pool, swimming towards the bottom. She grabbed the girl's arm that was floating in the water. The girl's eyes popped open, the dark eyes staring directly at Kara. Kara jerked back in shock, her mouth opening in a scream. Water gushed down Kara's throat as she waved her arms around, trying to swim to the surface. She needed air. A hand gripped her lower leg, and Kara's eyes widened. No! She kicked out, trying to get loose, but it felt like she was being pulled deeper to the bottom. Her heart pounded against her chest. Kara paddled her arms frantically, trying to get free. Help! She kicked out hard, finally releasing the grip on her leg. She swam up to the surface, gasping for air. She coughed as she tried to get to the edge. It felt like snot and water dribbled out of her nose. She swam awkwardly and pulled herself up, sucking in air. On her hands and knees, she gagged out water and nearly threw up. Her shoulders moved up and down with heavy breaths. Her body trembled. She blinked water out of her eyes as she got her breathing under control. She peered down at the small pool. The girl was still there, still at the bottom. She was looking straight at Kara with a piercing, dark glare. I'm not alone. That realization had thoughts juggling Kara's mind as she walked quickly along the pools and water slides, trying to understand what was happening. How could the girl in the water be in Kara's VR experience? Was the girl part of the water park theme? She didn't understand. The element of mystery shifted her fun experiencing into something uneasy, something scary. Honestly, a creepy girl at the bottom of the pools was not exactly a fear she had wanted to face. Yeah, I imagine. It certainly wasn't a fear she'd had until a few minutes ago. Kara took a deep breath and tried to calm down as she walked. The tiles felt chilled under her feet. Goosebumps ran along her arms and she rubbed her hands across her skin. It was all going to be okay. None of this was real. Anyway, in reality, she was sitting back in a VR chair in Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex Resort experience. Lola and Francine were playing arcade games, waiting for her to come back. Hypertime would run out. She was just in here for an hour. Right. Because it was set to 1, right? The hypertime slider, right? I digress. She only had to keep playing the game until it ended and avoid the girl in the water as much as possible. That won't be hard. She's just in the water everywhere. In every pool. Yeah, easy. She would just keep away from the water. That's no fun. Just to be sure, Kara came to a halt and leaned over a pool, looking down to see if the girl was still there. Sure enough, there was the girl at the bottom of the pool, staring at her. She reached a hand up towards Kara. Her skin was pale white. Her eyes had an eerie peacefulness to them. Kara's gut tingled, and she took off in a sprint. She had to keep away from the girl. Kara darted alongside the pools through the donut shop theme. Frosted donuts floated in the pool, were donut holes pasted on the tiled walls. She could actually smell the sugary pastries in the air. Are they pastries if they get fried? I guess. Never thought about that. But she couldn't take the time to enjoy her surroundings as urgency thrummed through her. Keep running. She rushed through a beach theme. Wet sand squashed under her feet as the sound of seagulls cried in the distance. The rush of waves from a large pool filled her ears, and a light spray of water touched her face. The beauty of it didn't affect her as she ran through the next theme. She stumbled upon an ice cream shop with giant floating ice cream cups in the pool. Neon cones with single scoops glowed on the wall. There was an actual ice cream counter so players could get a scoop of ice cream with tables to sit at and eat. It would have been fun if she didn't see the girl with the black hair floating in the water. Yeah. The farther she ran, Kara was sure she would lose the girl, but when Kara peeked into the closest pool, the strange girl was still there. In every pool, I'm just thinking, like, Kara is strawberry blonde, right? Or I think that was the description, right? So I guess it wouldn't... Yeah, no. The effect of chlorine on hair would probably just be like bleach and make it white, right? Or like a gray or some muted tone, I guess. Not black, probably not. Unless it's algae or something. The idea was that the girl in the pool is Kara because she's in there infinitely and... Well, anyway. Right, where was I? In every pool, in every body of water, Kara stopped running, her breathing harsh. Her mouth was dry and parched. She scanned wildly around her, only to see more pools, more themed water slides. She needed out. Lola, Francine, Kara yelled out in frustration. Zach, please get me out of here. I don't want to play anymore. Something weird is going on here. Help me, please, Suddenly, she remembered the emergency button on the armrest. Of course, she squeezed her eyes shut. She tried to connect with her real self sitting in the chair. She moved her arms out and pushed for the button. Nothing. She couldn't get a sense of herself in the VR chair at all. That couldn't be. She tried again, reaching out, but all she touched was air. Oh my gosh. Her eyes opened wide. She felt totally disconnected from her real body, but how? What the heck was going on? She touched her head and actually felt her tangled hair. She slid her hand over her face. She could feel the skin, as if touching her real self. She touched her arms, her stomach, reached down to her legs. She felt real. It was as if her actual body had been completely transported into the water world. No, this isn't reality. But the way her body felt told her otherwise. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her breaths increased. Oh no. She gazed at the pools around her, and everything started to spin. She stepped back and hit a wall. She pressed her hands flat against the tiles so she wouldn't fall over. She breathed through her nose calmly, just like her basketball coach had told her when she was younger and the coach wanted to calm the team down at practice. Breathe in, breathe out. Her heartbeats began to slow and her breathing evened out. When she finally calmed, her body felt unexpectedly heavy. She needed to rest. She wasn't sure how long she'd been running through the water park. She looked around and found herself in a pizza parlor theme. She took a seat at a red pizza booth with black and white checkered tables. She pulled her legs against her chest and wrapped her arms around her. She could smell pepperoni and cheese as she stared out into the small, shallow pool before her. For a brief moment from where she sat, she couldn't see the girl at the bottom of the water. It's not real, she murmured over and over, with her eyes closed, rocking herself back and forth. None of it is. This place, that girl, isn't going to end. It's all going to end soon. I'll be back with Lola and Francine, and everything will be back to normal. This is just a really, really high-tech VR experience. Everything may feel real, but it's all fake. Just make-believe. When Kara finally opened her eyes, she was standing a couple feet away from the shallow pool. Her eyes were sliding down to the water. What? Kara's eyes widened as she raised her arms out to balance herself. She swiveled her gaze back to the pizza booth where she had just been sitting, and then to where she was standing beside the shallow pool. Kara looked down into the water and spotted the girl staring at her. Kara leaped back. Her body began to tremble. This isn't okay. I didn't get up. You can't make me do things against my will. This isn't funny anymore, okay? Zach, if you're playing a mean trick on me, I'm done now. Please get me out of here. Anyone. Her voice echoed back at her through the water park, empty, save for the girl in the water. Help me, she screamed. Tears stung her eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. No, I'm okay. I'm not gonna cry. She blew out a breath. Think, Kara, think. It seemed she couldn't even sit down to rest. Well, then she would have to keep going, because if she let her guard down, the creepy girl would somehow lure her into the water. Her hands tightened in a fist as she took a few more calming breaths. She had to keep moving until the game ended. It seemed like hours had passed as Kara continued to walk through the labyrinths of pools. Why hadn't the experience ended, she wondered. Zach had said the longest she could be in hyper time was the equivalent to 1 VR hour. So what was taking so long? She felt like she was roaming forever through the creative themes. Yeah, I probably misunderstood that. If the slider was set to 0, as Zach left it, I guess that means eternity. The good old under construction thing. I guess. Well, So her brain is probably already mush, huh? So what? Can just end the book here, right? We know how this ends. Well, I guess we don't know what's up with the girl. So that's still quite interesting. So let's go. She felt like she was roaming forever through the creative themes. Her mouth was dry from exerting herself. She wished she had a piece of her favorite gum. She felt like her limbs were tiring and her mind felt foggy. She really did need a safe place to rest. Luckily, she found a small alcove in a rocky area that had a miniature volcano with only one small heated pool, a couple feet away. The air was extra hot and perspiration dotted her forehead, but it seemed like a safe place to rest that was far enough from the water. I don't think a sauna is a good place to rest, but you do you, I guess. A safe place to rest that was far enough from the water. Kara ducked into her small area, laid against the hard rock, and curled up into a ball. She could hear the constant rushing of water around her. She felt very alone. There was a strange feeling in the middle of her chest that felt hollow. She rubbed a hand against the feeling to push it away. In her daily life, she was never really alone. Her mom worked from home. She was always surrounded by kids at school. When she went out, it was usually with Lola and Francine. She always yearned to be left alone, to do her own things, to make her own choices without having to get someone else's approval. Now, in some weird way, she got what she wanted. And yet, she was isolated with a girl who tried to drown her. Not exactly what she had in mind. Truthfully, she would give anything to be with her parents and Lola and Francine. At the moment, she would have laughed at the irony if she didn't feel so sad. I'll be safe here for a few minutes, she whispered to herself. Her eyes grew heavy as she drifted off to sleep. The sun was warm and the neighborhood quiet for a Sunday morning. Kara was 5 years old and tucked up in the middle of a big oak tree. Tucked up in the middle of a big oak tree. Is that Oliver? No, probably not. In her family's neighborhood, holding as tight as she could to the tree trunk. Peggy, her second cousin, was smiling as she nudged her little body out onto a tree limb. Peggy and her parent had come to visit Kara and her family for the weekend. They lived 2 towns away and usually visited about once a month. Kara liked to play with Peggy, but sometimes her cousin could be a know-it-all who never listened to Kara. Like now. Kara's hands and feet were tingling just under her skin. Peggy, I don't think you should be climbing onto that branch, Kara told her. You're going to be big trouble. I'm not going to get in trouble if no one tells. Peggy had black hair pulled back in pigtails. She was missing a front tooth. Are you going to tell on me? No. Kara felt envious because Peggy seemed to brave climbing trees. And Kara felt super scared. Her palms were sweaty as she held on to a tree trunk, the bark biting into her skin. Her stomach felt like it was in a huge knot. Kara looked down to the ground. She was pretty far up. She shouldn't have climbed a tree. She wondered if she'd be able to get down. Her parents were going to be really mad if she got stuck. Come on, follow me, Kawa. Kawa, Peggy said. It's really fun. Kara shook her head and held on as tightly as she could to the thick trunk. No, please, you're such a baby. Okay, maybe they're not that young. Kara frowned at her. No, I'm not. Are you? When she stuck out her tongue, Then she stuck out her tongue in Kara's direction. Kara gave her a mean look back and sawed off the branch she was sitting on. No, it's probably not how it goes. Peggy stretched her body out on the branch. Her maroon sweatsuit reminded Kara of rotten strawberries. Look at me, Kara. It's like I'm a wild cat hiding in a tree. She shoved her arms out, giggling. Look, no hands. No, you're gonna be flying, yeah. I'm flying. I'm really flying. Kara's throat tightened at the sight of cousin as the tree limb bent lower under her weight. Peggy, stop. Come back right now. If you get hurt, we're both going to be in trouble. Stop saying. Something cracked. The branch shook, and Peggy grabbed the branch underneath her, and she let out a scream. Oh, wait, I just realized. Peggy has black hair. So does the girl in the pool. Kara yelled out, Peggy, hurry, climb back to me. I can't. I'm stuck. Help me. She reached a hand out to Kara as her other arm wrapped around the branch. Tears welled in her eyes. Kara shook her hand. Her body felt frozen. She was too far away. I can't. Just climb toward me. Come backward. Hurry. I can't move. The branch cracked again. Peggy wrapped both arms around the branch and started crying. Oh gosh, I'm stuck. Please, Kara. I want my mommy. Got my mommy. The girls gasped as the branch splintered really loud, and Peggy began to fall. Both girls screamed. It was like a horrible slow motion, as Kara helplessly watched Peggy fall through the air until she hit the hard ground. Thump. Peggy's head hit against the cemented sidewalk. Oh shit. Cemented sidewalk. I was like thinking, yeah, the ground, but no. Cement. Shit. Blood poured out from her head. Kara screamed for her mom. Suddenly the ground under Peggy began to seep with water. Kara's eyes widened. The water covered Peggy. Her black hair waved out of the pigtails. What's happening? Kara cried. Mom, Dad, help! The water rose higher up the tree trunk, reaching Kara's neck. Kara had suddenly grown into a teenager self, no longer a little girl. Peggy was still at the bottom of the water, and her eyes opened as she turned and swam upward with the rising water. Her face shifted from Peggy to the girl at the bottom of the pool with dark eyes, then back to Peggy again. Peggy / the drowned girl reached up toward Kara. As the water inched closer, Kara started to climb the tree to try to get away from the water and the girl. Her heart pounded, her stomach tightened, but the water kept rising higher and higher. A pale hand broke out of the water, latching onto Kara's ankle, digging into her skin. Squeezing, Kara kicked out, shouting, No, Mom, Dad! The hand yanked Kara so hard she fell from the tree and splashed into the water. The hand pulled her deeper down into the depths. Kara screamed under the water, bubbles floating up from her mouth as the trees above appeared farther and further away. Kara awoke with a jolt, breathing hard. She looked around, disoriented. She was soaked with sweat. Where was she? Was she still in the VR? Laying before her was the girl from the pool. She had crawled halfway onto the pavement. Kara scurried back against the rock as far as she could. The girl no longer looked at peace or serene. In fact, it looked like she was deteriorating. Her black hair was twisted like vines on a rocky alcove. There were a few bare spots on her white scalp. Her eyes stared up at Kara. Her skin was discolored, with faint green veins lining her face. Her pale lips parted, her grey garments were tattered and frayed. Her hands were pale, but the nails were smeared with black grime. "Don't leave me alone," a voice sounded in Kara's head. Kara felt her body slide towards the pool, towards the girl. "No!" Kara gasped as she tried to dig her feet into the rocky floor to stop her movement. When that didn't work, she sprang up. "Leave me alone!" She leaned as far away from the girl as she could, shimmying away from her. The girl reached out for her with her bare hand. Kara barely avoided her. Kara ran away as fast as she could. She just wanted to get back home to her own reality. She should have stayed with Lola and Francine, she realized. It didn't matter to her anymore that they always did whatever Lola wanted. They were the only true friends she'd ever had. They put up with her impatience and her snarky attitude. She would give anything to be back with her best friends. Francine twirled a strand of hair around her finger, watching Lola play an arcade game. Her friend had to jump across bridges and collect coins without falling to the ground or be eaten by a giant monster. Kids were all around them, playing the Mega Pizzaplex's games and talking loudly. Two little kids ran by them with what appeared to be an older sibling chasing after them. "Get back here, you little brat." "Oh, I'm telling Mom and Dad you called us brats." "Then stop acting like little brats." But they didn't stop running. Francine sometimes wondered what it would be like to have siblings. She was an only child, and her parents were often busy with life and stuff. Her joined organization and volunteered at work and tried to get Francine to do the same at school, but Francine didn't seem to have their confidence gene. Having talked to lots of people made her nervous. She felt awkward, and she never understood how some people could talk so much. You and me both. Her parents had worried a lot about her until she'd met Lola and Kara. Francine was just glad her best friends accepted her for who she was, and didn't try to change her like her parents often did. With Lola and Kara, she could just be herself. There was no pressure. It was always so easy to hang out with them. "Yes, I leveled up," Lola said with a smile. "So great." Francine cheered, maybe more enthusiastically than me. She didn't like to play games that much because she wasn't that good at them. Lola was pretty good. Well, Lola was good at most things. It was better to watch Lola win than to watch herself lose. Losing's part of it. A few minutes later, Lola finally fell off a bridge with her last play. "Shoot," Lola said. "You got really far," Francine told her, trying to cheer her up. Lola took out her cell phone and checked the screen. "Why isn't Kara back yet? My brother will be here soon." "I don't know. Maybe we should go look for her." Lola looked around. "Maybe there are 3 bathrooms on the floor." Not maybe. Maybe. But there are 3 bathrooms on the floor and the place is packed, she sighed. "We should have stuck together, but Kara doesn't like to listen to me." "More like Kara and Lola both like to have their own way," Francine thought to herself. She was used to being the neutral person between the 2 strong personalities. She was the same with her parents. "Let me send her a quick text while we look," Lola said. After she sent the text, she nodded her head forward. "All right, let's go see where she is." Francine gave her a reassuring smile. She probably had just got stuck in line. "Don't worry, we'll find her." "Yeah, you'll find her. Maybe." "Don't leave me alone," the voice kept replaying in Kara's mind. She had come across a pirate ship that was anchored onto some big rocks by a pool that resembled a lagoon. She stood on the port and gazed around her, looking across multiple pools and slides. The constant rushing of water echoing across the walls made an ache throb in her head. Don't leave me alone. Not to mention the stupid voice that wouldn't shut up. Will you stop already? She yelled out. Don't leave me alone, don't leave me alone, don't leave me alone. Frustrated, Kara gripped her hands against her ears and screamed at the top of her lungs. She screamed and screamed until her voice was hoarse and her breaths were short and faint. She heard her screams vibrate along the water park as she dropped her hands from her head. Her chest rose up and down with heavy pants. The voice had finally stopped. Kara was starting to get worried that there was something really wrong. Now you're getting worried? Not when you saw the girl? Okay. Really worried. I'm also worried. Could you be trapped inside this water park forever? That fearful thought made her nauseated and slapped a hand to her mouth as her stomach heaved. She let out a shaky breath. No, she would get back home. There had to be some kind of way out, a doorway maybe, a safety exit. Yeah, that sounded right. She didn't know if that was actually possible, but it was the only plan she had at the moment. Don't leave me alone. Kara growled under her breath, spun around and grabbed onto a roped ladder that looked like a giant net. She scurried up as far as she could and gazed around her. The water park was vast, but she now saw past the wonderment to how sterile and never-ending the tile walls really appeared. Lonely, endless. But it wasn't real. Oh, it probably is endless. Yeah. Don't leave me alone. Just shut up already. You're not going to win, Kara yelled out. I'm going to get out of here, and you will be alone forever. I'm not staying here with you. Her hands were tight on the rope as she trembled. She swallowed hard as she gazed across the desolate park. She hoped with everything inside her that the water park experience would suddenly end. But if it didn't, she would find a way out of her own. Sooner or later. Sooner rather than later. So there was only one thing to do. Keep going. To hope that her efforts wouldn't be necessary, she climbed down the netted ropes and set out to look for an escape. For what seemed like the next few hours, she went through every doorway she came across. She scanned the shallow pools, ignoring the girl, singular, thank you, floating in the water, hoping to see an anomaly or something that would help her leave. She looked for windows in the food themes, but there were no windows, only doorways that would open to different themes, only endless tiled walls wherever she turned. She strolled through an area with tiny floating boats, a pool with gray blow-up pool toys floated around. There was a candy theme parlor, but instead of seeming appetizing, the candy appeared plastic and fake. Kara's stomach flipped over. She wasn't hungry and she was actually afraid of eating something from the water park. Things were not normal here, she realized. Rules did not seem to apply. Finally, she noticed a door in a tiled wall that looked different. Everything so far had been immaculate, perfect, even if it was creepy, but this door's paint was faded and chipped. The handle was rusted and discolored. Curious, Kara twisted it and pushed open the door. The hinges sighed with a long creaking sound. She stood in the doorway of an old house. Kara hesitated. This is different. She felt immobilized with unease. It was like her body didn't want to enter. I'll be fine, she said to herself. As her pulse fluttered, she entered the house. Kara stepped into a small puddle of water on the floor of the house. She looked down in surprise. The water was icy, on her bare feet, cold. When she blew a breath, puffs of air formed, a chill ran down her back. Since she started the experience, she was always inside the water park or surrounded by an outside theme. But she was truly inside this house. The house was dark, with a few candles lit on tables, lighting Kara's way. The puddled floor was creaking under her feet, and as she looked closely at the walls, she noticed faint water lines running down the worn wallpaper. Patches of black mold had begun to grow on the faded surfaces. "What is this place?" she whispered. The only front, the front of the house speared off in 3 different directions. To the right, it was a living area with waterlogged furniture. A torn couch was shifted off to the side. Chairs were thrown about with missing cushions. A rotted coffee table was covered in mold. To the left was another damp sitting room with a brick fireplace that had a crack through the center. Water trickled through the bricks, and a slashed picture hung crookedly on the wall above. Lamps were broken and sunk in water. Straight ahead was a hallway with many doors and an occasional candle on the wall lighting the way. "Kara, I need help. Help me." Kara froze. It was the girl's voice again, in her head. Or was it Peggy's? She wondered. The voices were eerily starting to sound the same. She continued down the hallway, her heartbeats pounding, her hands fisted at her sides as she shivered. She was scared, and for once she wasn't sure what to do. Usually it was automatic to face fear, but that was for things like riding roller coasters or diving into the ocean. Not surviving a haunted VR water park. Although that's pretty cool, actually. She hadn't felt so scared since the day Peggy fell. Should she run in the opposite direction or simply face the mysterious girl and try to help her? Wait a minute. Kara had plenty of video games in her life. Had played plenty of video games in her life. She was always a goal for the games she played. Save the princess, finish the maze without dying, collect all the treasures, survive 5 nights. Maybe this experience was the same way. If she helped the strange girl in the water, would that be her way out of the resort? Could it be that straightforward? Or could it be that she hadn't been able to save Peggy? Maybe this would be her chance to save someone else who needed help. The more she thought about it, the more the plan sounded right to her. If she helped the girl, she could end the game. She could go back to her friends, get back her real life at home with her parents, and deep down, she could finally release the guilt she carried for Peggy getting hurt. An inkling of hope sparked within her, and she held on to the feeling to help her move forward, trudging through the freezing water. "I can do this," she said. "I can end this and get back to my reality." With her stomach twisting in knots, she called out quietly, "Where are you, girl?" Then once again louder, "I can't help you if I can't see you." "Help me." "I'm trying," Kara muttered. She strode down the hallway, opened the first door to the right. More cold water gushed over her ankles. She saw what appeared to be the little girl's bedroom, but everything was drenched. She heard a strange music box playing broken music somewhere from the room. Instead of a frilly pink bed, the covers and the sheets were gray and drenched in water. Dark clothes and mildewed stuffed animals floated past. The walls were warped. A kid's painting hung on the wall, dripping with smeared paint. The ceiling looked to be sagging, but there was no girl floating in the shallow water. A fresh chill radiated down her back when the music box got stuck on the same note. Carol walked farther into the room, looking for the music box. She stepped up to a moldy dresser to see a carousel horse inside a music box, shifting up and down. Carol closed the lid, and the music box stopped. She turned to walk out, and the music started again. Carol whirled around. The music was back open, and the music grew louder, piercing her eardrums. Carol rushed to the door and slammed it close at her back. The music faded. Creepy. She shuddered before continuing down the hallway. The next door she entered was on the opposite side of the hallway. Another bedroom, but for grown-ups. There was another bed soaked with water. This one was blood red. Dead roses floated in the puddles on the water. She wrinkled her nose. It smelled of rotting plants and something coppery. A canopy hung over the bed with ripped material hanging from the 4 bedposts. A small picture frame floated in the water towards Kara, and she picked it up. The picture was faded, but she could see where the girl with black hair sitting with 2 parents. However, all the features were blotted out with white, as if their faces had been rubbed off. Sorry for that page break. The woman had black hair and the man had brown. The picture seemed to be old. The clothes appeared from a different time period. Was this girl's life before she became a girl at the bottom of the pools? Was she someone trapped in this virtual world of pain and heartache? Kara could relate to being stuck in the past with guilt she harbored for Peggy. There were days she wondered if it would ever end. Suddenly, water started to spill out of the photo, and Kara gasped as she dropped the picture back in the water. The room creaked loudly with movement around her. The boards shifted beneath her feet. Kara quickly stepped out of the room and shut the door. She sucked in chilled air, and moved further down the hallway. Her feet and ankles shuffled through the water. Her teeth began to clatter. She rubbed her arms trying to warm herself, but it didn't help much. It felt like she was walking through liquid ice. A decrepit staircase appeared before her. Water gushed down the stairs as if they were rocks in a creek. "Help me!" The voice seemed to come from above the staircase. Kara carefully walked up the steps, making sure to step over any that felt too unstable. The wood was weak and shifted under her feet. She gripped tightly to the railing, but the railing broke loose and Kara had to balance herself as the railing fell down to the staircase, splashing into the water. "That was close," she whispered, trembling. As she looked down behind her, she noticed water was rising in the house. The water had filled the hallway and was catching up to her. A feeling of dread seeped in through her. Oh no. "Help me, Kara!" Kara rushed up the staircase. The staircase seemed to lengthen in front of her, extending on and on. She ran up each broken stair, her breath huffing. Her legs began to ache. A cold sweat pearled down on her brow. "Kara!" "I'm coming!" Kara yelled. "I'm coming to save you. We'll both get out of here." She finally made it to the top of the staircase as the water gained momentum and spilled onto the flooring. Kara spotted a door at the end of the short hallway in front of her. There was glowing light coming out around the trim. She ran as a wave of water chased her through the halls. Kara ran as fast as her legs could manage. The icy water splashed onto the back of her legs. She looked back to see a giant swell rising higher and higher, ready to crash over her. Kara gasped. She reached for the door, grabbing for a handle, but it wouldn't budge. It wouldn't open. Kara screamed as the wave crashed over her. She held her breath as the current rushed over her, trying to pull her away. Her body felt nearly frozen. Underwater, Kara held on to the handle for dear life. If she let go, she feared she would be washed away and never heard from again. The knob finally twisted, and Kara pulled open the door. She swam through the water, twisting around, and shut the door behind her. The water slowly receded. Kara gasped for air as she kneeled on the floor, shivering. Her lips felt like tiny icicles. Her body was stiff. Water ran down her body and wetsuit, and her eyes and her hair dripped into her eyes. She shoved strands out of her face while looking around. She was in a large bathroom. The walls were tiled gray. Some of the pieces were missing and cracked. Streams of water spilled down the walls. The floor was a puddle that covered her feet and ankles. A few feet in front of her was a dirty porcelain claw-footed tub. Water spilled over the edges. "Kara, help me!" Kara swallowed hard and stiffly stepped forward through the water. She looked down at the tub and discovered the girl laying at the bottom, under the flowing water. Her pale eyes blinked up at her. "Don't leave me alone." I'm going to save you. We'll both be free," Kara told her through chattering teeth. She slowly reached down into the water. The girl lifted her hand to meet Kara's. Kara gripped the cold hand and tried to pull her out. The girl pulled back harder. Kara's eyes widened. "Stop," she whispered. She dug her feet into the wet flooring. Her feet slipped in the water. She gripped the edge of the tub, trying to break free from the girl's fierce grasp. "Stop," Kara cried out, struggling. "Let go of me." But the girl was too strong. Kara lost her grip on the edge. Her breath backed up in her lungs as she was swiftly pulled into the tub. Underwater, Kara struggled with the girl. She wasn't in the tub anymore now, but in a but a large expanse of water. The girl's eyes squinted, her pale face scrunched up in anger. Green veins that speared off in her face were darker now, thicker. She bared her blackened teeth as she held Kara's arm in a tight grip. Kara pulled back from her, trying to break free. She thought with all she had in her, she would survive. She had to. She kicked out her feet, trying to shove the girl away from her. "I am free," she thought. "I am free." Kara broke away from the girl, shoving her away with her feet. Kara swam upward. She discovered that she was in a huge pool. The water had warmed, but the surface seemed miles away. She kept swimming upwards. Her lungs felt as if they would burst. She needed to open her mouth to breathe. She struggled toward the top, nearly there. But it was still so far away, so tired. She started to slow down. Something brushed her foot. Kara looked down to see the girl, grabbing for her, trying to latch onto her foot. Kara's eyes widened. Her arms felt like weights. She had to get to the surface. Finally, she burst through, gasping for air. She swam to the edge of the pool. She hauled herself halfway over the edge, gagging, coughing. She blinked water out of her eyes, looking around. She was once again in the water park. She pulled herself out of the large pool that had 2 water slides going into it. She dragged herself as far as she could from the water. When she hit a wall, she collapsed. Her body felt like rubber. Her lungs felt raw. Her eyes drifted closed. She knew the girl was after her, but she couldn't help her eyes open but she couldn't keep her eyes open another moment. Mom, I want to go to the skate park. I'm tired of skateboarding in front of the house. Carol was now 10 years old, holding her skateboard against her hip. She was standing with her mom in the kitchen on a summer morning. Kara, I can't manage it right now. her mum said as she poured herself a cup of coffee. "I've a meeting in 10 minutes. Kara pointed a thumb to her chest. "I can go by myself. It's just 2 blocks over. I'm 10. Her mum sighed. "Kara, I know how old you are, but I need to make sure you're safe. You're making safe choices." Kara frowned. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "Lately, you haven't been. Your father and I don't know what's gotten into you. We hope it's just a phase you're going through. It is, right? Just a phase of making unsafe choices?" Kara rolled her eyes. "Mom, come on. I'll be careful, I promise." She tapped the purple helmet on her head. "See, I have protection on and everything." Her mom shook her head, her red curls bouncing. "No, Kara, your father and I agreed. You're just going to have to skate in front of the house for now. You know I have to work during the weekdays. We'll go this weekend. I'll be able to take you then, I promise." "This sucks." Her mom's eyes widened, her cheeks turning pink.
Cara Mary, you watch your tone, young lady.
That's the mother, sorry.
"Like you and Dad want to keep me from me a little kid forever. It's not fair,"
she cried, stormed out, the front door slamming at her back, and threw her skateboard down on the lawn. She crossed her arms and sat on the step. Her parents' tight grip on her was driving her crazy. Ever since Peggy, there was a pressure in her chest, and Kara rubbed a hand against the funny feeling. Other kids at school got to go places on their own, like the skate park or to the mini mart to get candy. Not Kara. Her parents were always fretting about what could happen to her if she was by herself or with other kids her age. They told her that she didn't think rationally about the dangers that could happen to a little kid. She had to think about safety and precautions, blah, blah, blah. Like from the beginning of the story, blah, blah, blah. She was too young to understand, they would always say. But Kara wasn't too young to understand. She knew her parents had changed after Peggy fell from the tree. They let their fear overtake their lives. It was like they tried to put Kara in a protective box so nothing bad could happen to her. But it wasn't fair. Kara felt trapped. She felt helpless. The more her parents denied her the freedom she craved, the more Kara fought back. Her mom and dad didn't understand that she needed to feel unrestricted. She felt happy when she was able to do new things and exciting things. Why couldn't they understand that? Why couldn't they understand her? Instead, she was always forbidden to do the fun stuff. It was like she was constantly being punished for not helping Peggy. She squeezed her eyes shut against the picture of Peggy on the ground, blood pouring out of her head. Just like the dream she had so many times. But instead, it was Carol who fell from the tree with blood spilling from her head. She hadn't meant for it to happen. She could do that day over again, she would. If she could do that day over again, she would. She'd tell Peggy to play something else. Carol wouldn't have climbed the dumb tree so she could run and get her parents before Peggy fell. But it had to happen, and she could never take it back. Kara tightened her hands into fists. She stood and walked over to the skateboard and swiped it up. She peered into the window and didn't see her mother. With a tight jaw, she took off down the street to the skate park. Mom would never even know she was gone, Kara told herself. She'd be back in the front yard before her mom's meeting ended. When Kara arrived, kids were skating or biking over concrete ramps. Some were doing really cool tricks. "Wow, look how much air that kid got on his bike jump. That kid spun in a circle." Kara watched the other kids in admiration for a few minutes, studying them, learning. She could do everything they could. She just had to practice. When the ramp was free, she skated over to the ledge. Looking down, she felt her hands tingle with nerves. Something inside her told her it wasn't safe, but she squashed it. She knew she wasn't that good yet on the skateboard, and she would be one day. She had to keep trying. How else was she going to learn? She set down her board and stepped onto it with one foot. She crouched and pushed off the steep ledge. She managed to get 2 feet on. She managed to get 2 feet on as she rolled down the ramp. Her gut twisted with excitement. She was doing it. When her body leaned too far back and the board rolled from under her, she crashed hard. Her elbows scraped against the concrete. Oh, no elbow protectors. Come on. Ow, she hissed and sat up. She saw blood on her elbow and her legs, burned underneath her jeans. A kid whizzed by her on a skateboard but didn't say anything. Kara brushed her hands off on her shirt and got back up to try again. Damn. That is endurance. Or, how do you say? I don't know. Just stubborn, I guess. To try again. With her arms and leg throbbing, she returned to the top of the ramp. She set her foot on the board and pushed off again. She rolled down the ramp too fast, lost her balance again, and this time fell headfirst. At least she has a helmet. She flipped over in the air and landed hard on her right arm. There was a click sound inside her head. Pain shot through her. A moan escaped her as she pulled her arm against her chest. Her face flashed hot, cold, then hot. Tears stung her eyes. Oh no, she thought with sudden alarm. She had broken her arm. Her parents were going to be so mad. Your first thought? Oh no, my parents are going to be mad. Not like, oh no, pain. Well, she pushed off her feet, coveting her injured arm against her. She felt a strange bump under her skin, and dots flashed. It's dislocated, isn't it? Dots flashed in front of her eyes. She had to steady herself before she fell over again. Suddenly, the sky darkened above her. Kara looked around bewildered. Dirty water started rushing down the ramp. What's going on? She breathed out as the water gushed around her. The surface rose quickly. Kids ran and took off to escape the water. Kara winced at the pain in her arm. The water had risen to her waist. She tried to walk through the rushing water, but the current began to turn in circles around her. Kara tried to walk out of the center. She slipped and was pulled into the current, then spun around in a whirlpool of water. Help me! Help! She cried out. She couldn't swim with a broken arm. Something tugged at her leg. Fear crashed over her. Kara screamed as she was jerked down into the center of the whirlpool. Kara startled awake in the water park as her body was being dragged. She looked down to see the girl pulling her towards the pool once more. No, Kara whispered. Her voice came out raspy. She tried to grab for anything, but the tides were slick. Her hands slid across the flooring. Don't leave me alone, Kara. Kara kicked out with her leg, hitting the girl into the chest. She found herself kicking and kicking until she finally broke free. She shoved the girl back in the pool with a foot to the shoulder. Stay in the water. Kara felt a phantom pain in her right arm from when she broke those years ago. She ran her hand along the arm and made sure it was healed. She was okay. Suddenly, the lights in the water park flickered. Kara jerked her head up. What now? The lights flickered again, and Kara pushed herself to her feet. Where do you think she is? Francine asked. Lola, they were back on the same floor in front of the arcade entrance in case Kara had come looking for them. I'm pretty sure we searched all the restrooms on each floor. We didn't see her walking around anywhere either. Lola was clearly frustrated. Her arms were crossed and her jaw was tight as she gazed around. It seemed Kara was messing up her carefully thought out plans. I thought she was done with her plan. Well, I guess getting home is also planned. I don't know, but when I find her, I'm going to tell her how inconsiderate she's being. Lola waved her phone around. She's even ignoring my texts and calls. I mean, we all had fun together, right? Francine nodded. Yeah. So why is Kara always against having fun with us? Why is she messing around, ignoring us now? What do we do to her to deserve this? If she didn't want to come today, all she had to do was tell us. I mean, she's not afraid to tell us anything else on her mind. Francine ignored us too. Too used to Lola's and Kara's complaints about each other. Lola's phone pinged with a message. Is it Kara? Francine asked hopefully. Lola shook her head. Oh, shoot. It's my brother. He's waiting outside. What do I say? Lola stared at Francine with wide eyes. She looked nervous, uncertain. Why is Kara messing around? Just tell him the truth, I guess. And then tell Kara's parents, I guess, to pick her up or to make sure that she gets home somehow. But tell someone, please. Like most of the stories end badly because no one told anyone where they're going or what's going on, right? So let's hope this one is good or ends well. Francine blinked in surprise. Lola was asking her what to do? Lola always knew what to do. Well, you'll have to tell him the truth. That we got separated when Kara went to the restroom and now we're looking for her. Lola's nodded slowly. Right, good idea. I've been hearing the intercom all day, announcing lost kids. We'll have to call Kara to meet us. Then you can tell her how inconsiderate she was being. Lola smiled as she texted her brother. Okay, thanks, Francine. That sounds like a good plan. Maybe you should make some plans sometimes. But I probably won't tell Kara off. I don't want to get into an argument and mess up our friendship. Then she met Francine's eyes. Don't tell her, okay? Francine smiled. Sure. Come on. Let's go get to the information center. Everything will be okay. After running for some time, Kara slowed to a walk. She felt cold again, crossed her arms, trying to warm herself up. She could go back to the volcano part and warm herself up there, I guess. That's the good thing about the versatility of that place, or the different parts. Then again, bad situation all around still. The hope she had earlier about helping the girl get back to her reality had washed away in that pool, when the girl had tried to drown her again. Kara had tried everything she could think of to get out of the water park. She had tried to keep going until her time ran out. She had tried to look for an anomaly or a secret exit in order to end the experience. She had tried to save the girl. Nothing had worked. Yeah, I wouldn't have any idea either. What else is there to do in a VR world when there's no menu, right? It's difficult. I'm never going to get out of here, Kara realized with utter shock. She was really, truly trapped in this. Was truly trapped this time, stuck in the never-ending water park. Her eyes stung and a tear slid down her cheek. Maybe this was what she deserved. She'd be the first to admit she wasn't perfect. But most of the time, she didn't care. She didn't care that her parents thought, even though she loved them, what her parents thought, even though she loved them, and they loved her. She constantly fought against their restrictions. She often didn't care what Lola and Francine thought, even though they were her best friends. She hadn't helped Peggy when her cousin needed help. Kara mostly did whatever she wanted and didn't care about the repercussions. And now she was paying the price by roaming this isolated place with a dead girl who was trying to keep Kara with her. Why did it seem like, even in this VR experience, other people were always trying to make her do things against her will? Angry, Kara quickly opened the next door in the wall. When she opened the door, she nearly fell into nothingness, her free arm windmilling. There was absolutely nothing. It was an empty dark space with no floor, no ceiling or sky. Kara gripped tightly to the door handle, trying to regain her balance. Sweat broke across her forehead. She pushed herself backwards, standing upright. Breaths gushed out her mouth as she slammed the door shut. She slid down the floor as the lights flashed around her. The girl was ticked off now and doing her best to scare Kara. You think the girl is doing that? Isn't it just the end of the VR experience? It's obviously not endless, I guess. Or not obviously, but I guess it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe you just gotta jump through there to get out. Yeah, it's a big gamble, I guess. Is that all you've got? Kara yelled out, her face scrunched up. Well, you're going to have to do better than that. The girl must have not liked what Kara said, because Kara found her body slowly sliding toward a pool in front of her. She gritted her teeth and pressed her hands against the tiled floor, but this time she kept sliding. Just stop! She shoved her up her feet and rushed to the next doorway. She jerked open the doorway, glanced down to make sure there was a floor to step on, then rushed through and slammed the door at her back. She gazed around and noticed she'd walked into a room with a mirror maze. Now there were 3 Karas reflecting back at her. A mirror maze in a water park. Interesting. Never seen that. No way, she whispered. Kara pushed away from the door to walk closely to one of the mirrors. She almost didn't recognize herself. Her face looked so pale, and that her freckles stood out like strange dots. Her hair was wild, her lips were chapped, her eyes appeared dark and sunken in her face. She let out a sigh. I just want to get out of here before I wilt away. But she knew it no longer mattered what she wanted. The girl in the water seemed to be in charge. Kara walked along the mirrors, mesmerized by so many Karas reflecting back at her. Her parents would lose it if there were this many of her in the real world, she thought. That almost made her smile. Suddenly, she stepped into a puddle of water. Karas looked down at her feet and froze. The water was slowly rising. Panic shot through her, and she looked back for the door she'd entered. It was gone. She was completely surrounded by mirrors. She started to rush through the mirror maze, trying to find a way out. The water rose minute by minute as it passed her ankles and then her knees. An image flickered across the mirror in front of her, and Kara paused. Lola and Francine appeared on the mirror. They were at the arcade in the Pizzaplex. Kara stepped to the reflective glass and touched it. It was like a movie was playing on the mirror. It's so much more fun without Kara with us. You're right. Francine said. Hopefully she got lost on her way to the bathroom. Lola was playing an arcade game. She smiled. Totally. Everything is always about her all the time. And then she doesn't get her way. She gets pouty and thinks I don't notice her attitude. Of course I notice. How could I not notice? Kara hit the glass with a palm. Lola, Francine, I'm here. I'm trapped in this stupid VR game. I need you to find me. Go to the resort. Find that guy's sack. Please find me. I need your help. I'm at the resort. Maybe we should just ditch her, Francine said. You know, for good. Lola raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You think we should? Go to the resort. I'm here. Kara screamed at them. Please, I need your help. Then we can do whatever we want without having to ask her all the time, Francine continued on, ignoring Kara's pleas. We don't have to argue with her about what she wants to do and what we want to do. It'll make our life so much easier. No, stop. No, stop. Lola and Francine aren't like that, Kara said as she shook her head in denial, her eyes watering. They're my best friends. They care about me. You're just trying to make me feel bad. Trying to trick me. The glass image shifted to her parents. Mom? Dad? They were sitting at home on the couch watching television. Mom had a Siamese cat, Kay, sitting in her lap as she petted her. Dad was practically asleep next to her. I don't know what to do about Kara, her mom said. She's going to be fighting with us about more of the wild stuff she wants to do. Should we forbid her from everything? Her dad yawned. What? Like ground her? She'll throw one of her tantrums and sulk around the house. But at least she'll be safe. She's 15 now. It's getting harder and harder to say no all the time. She'll be miserable and make us miserable. If she wants to break an arm again, let her. Her mom's eyes widened. Martin! Her dad shrugged. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. Kara yelled at them as more tears slid down her face. I won't argue with you anymore. I'll do whatever you say. I won't take risky chances anymore, I promise. Please, I just want to come home. She hit the mirror with her fist. Suddenly, her parents were gone. The girl in the water stared back from the mirror. She floated under the water. Kara stepped back.
Kara, don't leave me alone.
Kara turned away, tried her best to move through the rising water. Her legs were heavy and slow. She waited with her arms, trying to find a way out. Stop this, she yelled, as the water rose to her neck. She looked up at the ceiling and found that she was actually at the pool's surface, where she might be able to escape. She simply waited for the water to rise. She simply waited for the water to rise, and she treaded the waves as they rose to the top. Suddenly, she was submerged, and she began to swim up towards the surface.
Don't leave me alone.
When Kara reached the top, she realized it was blocked by another layer of glass. Oh no! She hit against it with her open palms, trying to free herself. Her breath wanted to push through her closed mouth. She hit the mirror with a fist over and over. Let me out! The mirror cracked. Kara hit it again, shattering the glass around her. She burst out of the water, gasping for air. She pulled herself out of the broken glass. Ooh, it could be painful. She pulled herself out onto a layer of reflective glass. A cracked edge scraped against her hip, and she hissed. Blood dripped onto the glass. She carefully crawled over the mirrors, hoping they wouldn't break until she reached the edge. Relief found her sagging on the floor. She looked over to the blood dripping from her hip. The wound actually hurt. Great experience. Even pain. Yeah, whatever. The wound actually hurt. She could really get hurt here, she realized, as she swiped at the wound and stared at the blood on her fingers. It was supposed to be virtual reality. She shouldn't feel any real pain. But everything had felt too real since she entered the water park. The girl in the water peeked her head out of the hole in the shattered mirror and stared at her. Kara gave her a dirty look and got up to walk away, nursing her hip. Kara walked along the tiled floor aimlessly. The themes she would come across were fewer and farther in between. Now she only spotted the dark rooms that would lead to more tiled rooms and sporadic plain pools with slides. Nothing was colorful or unique. It all looked bleak and isolated. She felt lethargic, defeated. She was like a sponge that had been twisted and squeezed out, and there was nothing left inside her to give. It seemed like so much time had passed. Long, continuous hours, maybe even days. She couldn't tell. Maybe time stood still in the virtual world. Maybe years would pass and suddenly her experience would just end. And when she came out, everybody would be old, and Kara would still be the same age. Kara blinked, trying to focus. She was about to pass another door. She nearly didn't open it, since walking onto strange doorways hadn't been going well. However, she got near it. She felt warmth radiating from the wood. She touched the handle and noticed it wasn't cold. She hesitated and twisted the knob and pushed open the door. A bright light shined down in front of her. A bright light shined down on her from the ceiling, making her squint her eyes. She smelled chlorine and the quiet flow of water. Kara stepped through the doorway. Various tall water slides were dotted throughout the area with clear pools at the bottom, surrounded by tiles. But the pools weren't too close together. There was a safe distance around them. I could stay here, she thought. For a while, at least. She could be far enough from the water to avoid the girl. She walked along the structures, gazing at the tall water slides. Most of them were pretty average. A straight open slide into a pool. Soon she came across one intricate water slide that stood out from the rest. The long tubed slide came down from the ceiling, twisting like a coiled snake, and ultimately ended at the crystal clear blue pool at the bottom. She angled her head to see the very top. Where do you go? Kara wondered, as she realized the slide actually came out of the top of the ceiling. Wait, could this be a way out? Could she even dare to hope? But as she gazed up at the massive slide that twisted up, she realized that there were no stairs. She was going to have to climb the structure to find out where it began. She licked her dry lips and walked around, studying the intricate water slide. The slide was an enclosed tube with rushing water traveling down the long twisting coil. There was no way she could climb up that way. She'd slip and fall into the water where the girl could grab her. Her only way up was to climb the outside of the slide. Oh, that's a good idea. Her hands and feet started to tingle with nerves, and her stomach fluttered. There was not much to hold on to, and nothing to support her climb. She swallowed past the lump in her throat. In her dry throat, she crossed her arms and paced back and forth. The truth was that she was desperate enough to tempt it. She could do it, she told herself. She had to see where it led. Don't leave me alone, Kara. Kara jerked her head towards the pool, attached to the water slide. She stepped closer, looking down into the clear water. Of course, the girl was there, at the bottom. But suddenly, her gray skin was pale again, like porcelain. There were no more green veins on her skin or black teeth in her mouth. Her black hair looked thick and healthy under the water as it floated around her. She was actually pretty, Kara realized. She reminded her of Peggy. This isn't my place, she told her. I'm sorry you're here, but it's time for me to be back in my own reality. I miss my friends. I miss my parents. I miss my life. Kara turned away and looked at the tall structure. I have to go. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. The hairs on the back of Kara's neck lifted at the anger in the girl's voice. Kara ignored her voice and gripped the top of the tube, hiked up her right foot and hefted herself up. She balanced herself on top of of the hard material, and she reached up for the next row of coiled slide. She could hear the water stream down inside the tube as she reached up higher for the next twisting row. She was done with this virtual reality. She was going home. The girl at the information desk called for Kara to meet Lola and Francine. Kara Walsh, please come to the information desk on the first floor. Kara Walsh, you are needed at the information desk immediately. Lola paced back and forth, her arms crossed. Francine looked around, twirling her hair. The mega Pizzaplex was still packed. Everyone seemed to be going about their business, playing games, eating pizza, having a grand time. No one knew Lola and Francine were more worried about her best friend. Minutes passed. Lola kept pacing. Francine kept twirling. Kara didn't show up. This is getting ridiculous. Lola called Kara's phone, seething. It went straight to voicemail. Where is she? Lola asked with a little whine. Francine tugged at the hem of her shirt. I don't know. I'm sure we'll find her, though. She wouldn't have left without telling us. Lola pushed her hair behind her ears and shook her head. Something's off. I know it. Francine was beginning to feel the same way, but somehow someone had to stay calm and reasonable. Her responsible, organized, take-charge best friend was pretty much fraying around the edges. Let's look around some more. Maybe her phone died and she didn't hear the announcement. It is pretty loud in here. There could be a number of reasons she's not answering. Lola tapped her cell phone to her chin, staring out into the crowd. I guess her phone could have died. I'm just getting worried. My brother's waiting. He keeps texting me. She turned her attention to Francine. I should tell him to leave and come back later. Tell him we're looking for her and to please hold on. Lola texted him and Francine scanned the door, the floor around her. With so many people, it was as if Kara had been swallowed up by the mega Pizzaplex. I guess you could say that. When she spotted that cute boy from the resort walking among the crowd. Hey, there's a kid from the resort VR attraction. Oh, that's her. Hey, there's the kid from the resort VR attraction. Let's ask for his help. Lola's head shot up. Where? Over there. Come on. Francine led her through the crowd of people until they finally cut him off. Hey, remember us? Francine asked him. Do you remember our friend Kara with the reddish blonde curls? Zack nodded with his cute smile. Oh yeah. Hey. Have you seen Kara? Lola asked him urgently. We can't find her anywhere. Zack's eyebrows tugged toward each other as he watched at his wristband. Yeah, I left her at the resort about 20 minutes ago. Had to cover a quick break. The game should have ended already, though. He glanced at Francine and Lola, scanned their faces. She didn't meet up with you guys? No, she won't answer the phone either. And we're really worried. Lola frowned at him. What do you mean you left her at the resort? Zack rubbed on the back of his neck with a nervous smile. Oh, well, I am entirely incompetent. Sorry. Yeah, I guess. You basically killed her. Not intentionally, of course, but by not properly calibrating the tool, the device. Kara climbed up the tall, tubed structure slowly and carefully. It was a long and arduous climb, since she had to maneuver herself from each twisting pair of the coiled tube, pulling herself up to the next row. It looked a bit like it took a bit of time to find a foothold or to secure a good grip on the structure. She glanced down at how far she'd come, and the height made her gasp. The ground began to spin. She closed her eyes as a wave of nausea washed over her. Perspiration pur, pur, purling her brow. No, don't get sick, she whispered to herself. You can do this, Kara. Just keep going. She reached up to the next hard tube and pulled herself on top of the hard material, climbing higher. The lights above were harsh, and her hands, feet began to sweat. She wiped her hand down her wetsuit to keep it dry while a bead of sweat ran from her head to her nose. As she hugged the tube above, she suddenly lost her footing on the hard top below. Her arms gripped tightly to the upper tube as she hung for a second. She squealed in surprise. Please, please, please. She carefully got her feet back on the hard tube and stayed there for a minute to catch her breath. Okay, that was close. She looked down. She looked back up. The light was so bright she squinted, but she could still catch glimpses of the tube structure twisting into the tiled ceiling. Halfway there. Keep going. She seemed like she'd climbed for a long time, but the goal was just within her sights. She allowed herself a small smile. She could be back in her own reality soon. She would never take things for granted anymore again. She'd always believed she was trapped by her circumstances, as if she had no freedom, but with her strict parents, even with her best friends. But now, being confined in a virtual water park gave her a new perspective, where she truly understood the meaning of being helpless. When she was back in her reality, she would listen to her parents. She would agree with Lola and Francine on everything. If Lola wanted to make bliss, Kara would make them with her. If Francine was uncertain of her outfit, Kara would be uncertain with her. Kara would encourage her more often, and with her wardrobe. They would be surprised that soon Kara would be known as the nice girl in the group. If her parents wanted her to stay home, she would happily do so and maybe help around the house more often. She'd tell them she loved them. She couldn't remember when she told them last. She'd tell them as soon as she got home. She smiled at that thought. She couldn't wait to be back with them all. Kara glanced down once again. This time she looked into the pool. The water was clear. She could see the girl way at the bottom, as if waiting for her. Come to me, Kara. The voice sounded sinister, and Kara's gut clenched. Gone was the young girl's voice. It was now heavy, deep, and terrifying, echoing in her mind. It rattled Kara's nerves, made her hands and feet tingle even more. Anxiety shot through her. In a rush, Kara reached up. While looking down at the girl, she grabbed air instead. Kara, why are you doing that? Gotta pay attention. Kara sucked in a breath as she glanced up. She'd missed the next part of the tube, she thought in horror. Her arms wavered, throwing her off balance. As she tried to gain her traction on the bottom tube, her damp foot slipped off the surface beneath her. Kara grabbed for air. Her body fell backward, falling. Kara's arms flailed around her. Her mouth opened to scream, but nothing came out as she flipped over and over. She slammed hard on the tiled floor around the pool. The wind knocked out of her in a whoosh. She heard a harsh cracking echo in her ears. Pain ripped through her legs and hips. Her back and arms slapped hard against the floor. Pain radiating through her body. Ah, Kara moaned at the retching throbbing from her legs and hips. Tears overflowed and streamed down her face as she looked down at her twisted, contorted limbs. Her legs were broken. No. She blinked rapidly in stunned shock and agony. She couldn't walk. She couldn't climb the structure. She didn't think she could even move. Kara. Kara shook her head in denial. The girl from the pool reached out of the water, Pulling herself up onto the ledge, the pretty version had disappeared. The creepy girl with the twisted black hair, green veins lining her face, and piercing dark eyes came to get her.
No!
Kara screamed at her.
Please don't take me. I don't belong here. Please, I just want to go home. I'm begging you. Just let me go.
The girl kept coming, crawling toward her. Kara grabbed at the slippery tiles around her, trying to pull herself away, but she slid against a smooth surface, as if an invisible force pulled her against her will.
No!
That was more of a blood-curdling scream, probably. I can't do that now, though. The girl grabbed onto Kara's ankle, then the other. Excruciating pain shot through Kara's legs as she screamed out. The girl dragged Kara towards the pool.
Stop! Let go of me!
Kara screamed.
You're hurting me!
The girl jerked Kara into the pool and deep into the watery depth. Kara grabbed at the water around her as the light above her disappeared. Francine rushed behind Zach and Lola as they made their way to the resort. Zach pulled down the rope to the entrance as they all ran towards the control panel. He looked up at the VR screen, but it was blank. Nothing showing but static. That's weird, he muttered. Then he seemed to look at something on the controls and his eyes widened.
Oh man.
What? Lola asked him urgently. What's the matter? Is Kara there?
It's nothing. Something wasn't said right. Looks like the game was left on. So shows he's still here.
He flicked off the switch, called Hyper Time, then another one labeled Water Park, and pushed the button to slide open the door. Francine rushed behind Lola over to the VR seats. Kara was there, seated in the first chair. Thank goodness. No. She's here, Francine yelled out in relief. Kara, we couldn't find you. You gave us a terrible scare. Kara, Lola snapped. I've been looking for you everywhere. My brother is waiting for us. We were so worried. We have to go now. Zach rushed to Kara and lifted the helmet off. Kara? He asked, frowning. Kara! Lola's eyes went. She grabbed Kara's arm and shook her. What's the matter with you, Kara? Lola shook her harder. Stop playing around. This isn't funny. Francine looked at Kara, and then stepped back in shock. Kara had the strangest look on her face. Her eyes were wide with dark circles under them, as if staring at nothing. Her skin was pale, her lips were dry and parted. Francine slapped a hand to her mouth to keep her from screaming. And that's the end of the story. Well, another sad story. We're 2 for 2 now. Damn. Yeah, well, I didn't like this one as much as Nexie. I guess that's what is the flagship of the book, Nexie's story. I guess the Mimic is probably the most. Well, no, I don't know what happens in it yet. I just saw it in some theories and, right. I'm not entirely spoiled yet, but I think I got the gist. So, yeah, but this story is kind of weak. It's like nice with all the environments and whatnot, and this kind of liminal space kind of water park. So that's kind of cool. But other than that, not too interesting. Nexie was a lot more interesting because it had more characters, or rather more interactions in those characters. Although it also wasn't. Also had its shortcomings, I guess. Yeah. But it's still interesting. I was wondering if there was like maybe imagery or like some sort of, yeah, some sort of metaphor in the house that they found, right? Or that she found. Because that house, like, whose house was that? Was it Peggy's? Was it hers? Or was it the girl in the water? Or rather, who the hell was the girl in the water too? Because, well, either it's Peggy and her sort of, yeah, I guess a manifestation of, yeah, I guess it's that. It's just a manifestation of Kara's guilt, just like other stories like Pizza Kid or Blackbird, where like the guilt manifests and like physically makes people ill or makes them see things and whatnot. I wonder if that's also kind of lore relevant, like kind of just where strong feelings, like guilt for instance, can have some sort of supernatural effect, like Remnant has or Agony, just in form of imagination, like, right? Or like a physical effect on the body. I think that's interesting. Maybe someone could make a theory about that. I guess it would be a book theory because there isn't really someone who feels guilty in the games, is there? Michael, maybe, I guess. But I don't think the games ever say anything about him feeling sick or seeing things. So I don't think that's it. Or I don't think that's a case for it. Yeah, well, still interesting. A worthwhile story, I'd say. Anyway, well, that's the second story. Still took me a lot of time, but at least not as long as the first story, but I think this one was shorter. It seems like the Mimic is going to be the longest story in this book. We'll see, I guess. Well, see ya.